Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna devotees, accept my hey businesses August Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to our evening Bhagavad Gita circle class, which is a reading program. And today we will be picking up from chapter 2, verse 17. And the reading will be by His Grace Pariksit Prabhu from ISKCON Harrisburg. And it's all yours. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyabadi Paschatya Shitane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. So, good afternoon, devotees. So this, as we said earlier, we will start with chapter 2, content of the Gita summarized, text 17. Avinasi tu tadvidi, yena savam idam tatam, vinasam avayasyasya, nakaschet kartum arhati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. That which pervades the entire body you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This verse more clearly explains the real nature of the soul, which is spread all over the body. Anyone can understand what is spread all over the body. It is consciousness. Everyone is conscious of the pains and pleasures of the body in part or as a whole. This spreading of consciousness is limited within one's own body. The pains and pleasures of one body are unknown to another. Therefore, each and every body is the embodiment of an individual soul, and the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. This soul is described as 1/10,000th part of the upper portion of the hair point in size. The Svetashvatara Upanishad 5:9 confirms this. Balagra Satabhagasya Satada Kalpitasya cha Bhagujiva Savigyeya Sachanantyaya Kalpate. Translation. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again each of such parts is further divided into 100 parts, each such part is the measurement of the dimensions of the spirit soul. Close quote. Similarly, the same version is stated. Keshagra Shata Bhagasya Santam Sha Sadris Atmaka Jiva Shukshma Swarupoyam Sankhya-tito Hichitkanam. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 140. Translation. There are innumerable particles of spiritual atoms, which are measured as 1/10,000th the upper portion of the hair. Therefore, the individual particle of spirit soul is a spiritual atom smaller than the material atoms, and such atoms are innumerable. This very small spiritual spark is the basic principle of the material body, and the influence of such a spiritual spark is spread all over the body as the influence of the active principle of some medicine, as the influence of the active principle of some medicine spreads throughout the body. This current of a spirit soul is felt all over the body as consciousness, and that is the proof of the presence of the soul. Any layman can understand that the material body minus consciousness is a dead body, and this consciousness cannot be revived in the body by any means of material administration. Therefore, consciousness is not due to any amount of material combination, but to the spirit soul. In the Mundaka Upanishad 3:1-9, the measurement of the atomic spirit soul is further explained. Ishonu atma chetase veditavyo yasman pranam panchat dasam visha pranayshchitam sarvam utam prajanam yasmin vishudev vivavati shatma. Translation. The soul is atomic in size and can be perceived by perfect intelligence. This atomic soul is floating in the This atomic soul is floating in the 5 kinds of air: prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udhana. It's situated within the heart and spreads its influence all over the body of the embodied living entities. When the soul is purified from the contamination of the 5 kinds of material air, its spiritual influence is exhibited. The Hatha Yoga system is meant for controlling the 5 kinds of air and encircling the pure soul by different kinds of sitting postures, not for any material profit, but for liberation of the minute soul from the entanglement of the material atmosphere. So the constitution of the atomic soul is admitted in all Vedic literatures, and it is also actually felt in the practical experience of any sane man. Only the insane man can think of this atomic soul as all-pervading Vishnu Tattva. The influence of the atomic soul can be spread all over a particular body. According to the Mundaka Upanishad, this atomic soul is situated in the heart of every living entity. And because the measurement of the atomic soul is beyond the power of appreciation of the material scientists, some of them assert foolishly that there is no soul. The individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the super soul. And thus all the energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. The corpuscles, which carry the oxygen from the lungs, gather energy from the soul. When the soul passes away from this position, the activity of the blood generating fusion ceases. Medical science accepts the importance of the red corpuscles, but it cannot ascertain that the source of the energy is the soul. Medical science, however, does admit that the heart is the seat of all energies of the body. Such atomic particles of the spirit whole are compared to the sunshine molecules. In the sunshine, there are innumerable radiant molecules. Similarly, the fragmental parts of the Supreme Lord are atomic sparks of the rays of the Supreme Lord, called by name Prabhu, or superior energy. So whether one follows Vedic knowledge or modern science, one cannot deny the existence of a spirit soul in the body. And the science of the soul is explicitly described in the Bhagavad Gita by the personality of Godhead himself. Text 18. Antavanta nime deha nitya shukta sari vinam anasino prameyasya tasmad yudash bharata. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharat. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The material body is perishable by nature. It may perish immediately, or it may do so after 100 years. It's a question of time only. There is no chance of maintaining it indefinitely. But the spirit soul is so minute that it cannot even be seen by an enemy, to say nothing of being killed. As mentioned in the previous verse, it is so small that no one can have any idea how to measure its dimension. So from both viewpoints, there is no cause of lamentation, because the living entity as he is cannot be killed, nor can the material body be saved for any length of time or permanently protected. The minute particle of the whole spirit acquires its material body according to his work. And therefore, observance of religious principles should be utilized. In the Vedanta Sutras, the living entity is qualified as light because he is part and parcel of the supreme light. As sunlight maintains the entire universe, so the light of the soul maintains this material body. As soon as the spirit soul is out of this material body, the body begins to decompose. Therefore, it is the spirit soul which maintains this body. The body itself is unimportant. Arjuna was advised to fight and not sacrifice the cause of religion for material bodily considerations. Text 19. Ya enam veti hantaram, yaschena manyate hatam, ubhautau na vikyanito, nayam hanti nahanyate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain, is in knowledge. For the self slays not, nor is slain. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from subsequent verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of its spiritual constitution. What is killed or is supposed to be killed is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Ma Himshat Sarva Bhutani. Never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing of the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Text 20. Najayate miyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vanavuya ajo nitya shashvatu yam purano ahanyate hanyamane sarire. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Qualitatively, the atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutashta. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformations. It takes its birth from the womb of the mother's body. It remains for some time, grows, produces some effects, which we call children, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old, as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree, nor anything material. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely the children, are also different individual souls. And owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad 1:2:18, we also find a similar passage which reads, Najayate mriyate vapipaschin, nayam kutaschin na babuva kaschid, ajonetya shasvatu yam purano, ahanyate hanyamane sarire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita, but here in this verse, there's one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is a symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is therefore daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are two kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, the Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 1, 2, 20 in this way. Ano aniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya janto nihito guharyam tat akratu pashyati viptasoko tatu prasadan mahimano atmana. Both the super soul Paramatma and the atomic soul Jiva Atma are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being. And only one who has become free from all material desires, as well as lamentations, can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So it's 6:20 now. And
Thank you so much for reading this amazing, powerful verses. Actually, as you were reading the first chapter 2, verse 17, I've again, I've heard this before. We hear it again, and we always forget what we hear. But it's really powerful when that verse, when Sri Prabhupada said that consciousness is spread all over the body. That really, it has woken me up in the past, but it keeps waking me up to the same point. How consciousness spread all over the body. And then he goes on to say that the symptom of the soul's presence is perceived as individual consciousness. Can you speak more about that? Shed some light on that, please.
So the symptom of a soul is individual consciousness. It also says that it's spread all over the body. First, when you read it, it almost seems like, is he saying the soul is spread all over the body? Because we know the soul is localized in the heart area. But it's not the soul that's spread all over the body. It's the symptom of a soul. The soul's presence gives consciousness. When the soul is not in the body, look at it the other way. When the soul is not in the body doesn't function. It's called a corpse. If the soul leaves the body of a baby, not only will the baby be a corpse, but the baby is not going to grow. Not even that. When the soul is in the body, then the body is conscious and the body also grows. So the soul gives consciousness, which means everything that functions in the whole body is because the soul is there. So even if you get to your toe, as far away as it is from the heart, and you pinch somebody's toe, they can feel. Because there's consciousness there. Consciousness is not just what comes from the brain only. Consciousness everywhere, there's activity, there's the feeling of being alive. And so all of this thing, again, we take it the other way. Yes, the soul was in the heart area as we've been taught, and then it leaves and the person becomes a corpse. Now, if you pinch the same area of a person who's now dead at the toe area, now it won't feel anything. Even though, so we're making a point that the soul is sitting in the heart, which is quite far from where the toe is of a human being. Still, they have that feeling. So the symptom of consciousness is because the soul is there. When the soul is there, then the whole machine works. The body works. Mm? And when the soul is absent, then the body just ceases to work. So the soul is a symptom of consciousness. The consciousness is, in fact, the fact that consciousness means we are alive. We are alive. Mm? All parts of the body are working because of the soul. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from devotees? Any, Varsha has a nice point. I'm just going to read her point here.
Mm.
It's either Varsha or her husband Prasad. Let's see. Hare Krishna. Curious that when the soul leaves the body in modern science, we see that the parts of the body of the dead can be transplanted, and those parts and organs do functions in their new body. Any guidance on how that gets explained? Very nice question.
So, Prasad, if you ask that question, then we'll put it this way. So you got a car, right? Now, the car can function because there is a spark in the engine that brings everything to life. You put gas in there, you could do all of those things may be there. But if the spark that's in the engine from the spark plug does not kick in, the entire thing won't even start and it won't be able to serve you. So we're using the spark as the soul. So that is what gives consciousness, in a sense, to the car, the functioning of the car. Now, so sometimes there is transplant. Well, now you can take a car to a shop and the part is broken and you can put a new one in there and the car will still work. The point we're making is the physical body is a machine and machines' parts are replaceable. So if you put the right part in the right place, just like the mechanic does, the surgeon does that, like the mechanic does with the car, then the same spiritual spark will give the consciousness again, and the entire thing will work again. So the body is just a machine whose parts are replaceable, as long as science gets to know some things about it, and whose parts are also fixable when they're dead. We call it medicine. I mean, when the person is sick, we call it medicine. So all of that can be there, but the bottom line is the soul has to be present for the consciousness to work, for the body to come alive again. And as long as the soul is there, then the parts that you replace will also start working, fitting in their place that they're supposed to be. That's why surgery is successful sometimes. It's just working on the body, but the consciousness is from the soul, and it makes the parts of the body work.
Yes, Mother Gita, very nice. And I think, yeah, he said, thanks, Prabhuji. Thank you. Yeah, Prasad Prabhu asked, I think it's him. I hope, I'm not jumping, but he always asks nice questions. Yes, Mother Gita, please go ahead, Mother.
Hare Krishna, Mata.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. Oh, every time, I don't know how many times. Okay, before I go there, I had a question for you, Prabhu. So, supposing in continuation with the last question, so supposing the part from dead body A is put into a body B, so is it the soul of body B will work as a spark plug and that part will start working?
When a part of a body that is fitting the place, if it's put there properly, it will just fit into place. It's almost, let's just put it this way. So you have a machine. It normally functions. The example we gave, the spiritual spark is the soul, and that makes the machine come alive and do its function, just like a body does. So say a screw falls off and the body is not going to work well, the body is sick. If the surgeon knows which screw it is, what size it is, what the way it's put together, and be able to, through the surgery, fit it into the correct place and do it properly, then it will start working again. It's not a question of the body of, or that part coming from another body, therefore that soul has influence. It doesn't work like that, because when the soul is gone, the body, it's just a part. It's just a part. And when it's put in another body where the soul is present, it may work by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it sometimes take credit for being successful, but actually it is in fact the super soul that makes it either work or not work. You have to give credit where credit is due. Okay. So basically that the soul of where they got it from, the part from, now doesn't have a direct consciousness. It doesn't have a, but anyway, it's a long thing, it's arguable. Sometimes some things they will say there's metaphysically, good metaphysics, then it's a whole different story. Because then there is some effect though, from a metaphysical standpoint, but not from gross physical standpoint. And I mentioned metaphysical because I know my spiritual master has talked about it before. So I can't ignore that part. But in general, that soul does not have any effect. The soul from where that part came from does not have an effect on the new soul from gross material standpoint. Metaphysically, though, that's another story. Another story. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So when you were talking about the screw, so then I was just thinking maybe a screw from a part of my body is off. That's why I'm not feeling well. Maybe one screw is falling off.
It will be by the Lord. You are the devotee. You're serving. You're senior devotee on that. And so Krishna will help you. We would like, everything is in Krishna's hands, but we would like to get better as soon as possible. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah. And I was, when I was hearing purport to verse number 17, it was amazing. I was simply blown away by the way Srila Prabhupada describes everything. I mean,
yeah.
He's talking about the soul there in the heart with super soul. And not only that, he's talking about the corpuscles which carry the oxygen from the lungs that gather energy.
Oh, yeah, he got pretty scientific about it. Yes.
He was like, did he study science? I mean, medical science or what?
The Prabhupada's a pharmacist.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, but they definitely would know.
Yes,
they studied that. Yeah, they would know.
Yes, but it's just, I mean, we have read this so many times, but every time it's so new. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. There were small things I was going to talk about 17, but let's take Anu Mataji's question first.
Yes, please go ahead, Anu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Asking the question, if you think that question is very silly, please forgive me.
There are no silly questions. Not even in my chemistry class, not much less spirituality. Go ahead.
So, Prabhuji, my question is, again, this question has been, I think I have asked a couple of times in the way or other form, but still I'm not really convinced in the sense. Like, for example, when my mother was in the hospital, there was another patient, the doctor himself said that he's no more, okay? But we will try with the cardiac something. So I don't know, some punches were there or something like that was there. So with that, he pumped, and then after almost some minutes, he was revived. Unlikely, my mother, whose heart and everything was fine, it's like Krishna's mercy, it's gone. So my question is like, if the soul is in the heart, the person whose doctor has declared that the person is, for us, for the relatives, he confirmed like, the person will not be there. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay, so the person will be no more. So how come the doctors were able to revive him? I mean, like, Krishna's mercy, I can completely understand, but so that is my confusion, what has played such a role that this has happened?
So, very good question you asked. You're talking about...
It not only happens with him, I think we have heard of such cases a lot too.
That a person seems like there is no life, and then after a while, there's life again. That part you want to stress?
Yes, I don't know some machine which machine is it which we normally see on the TV also. They put it like they give a shock kind of a thing to a heart to revive it. So,
Yes.
So is that shock a kind of a soul, you would say? Because that's again a spark which is giving to your body the life.
The shock is mechanical. We don't compare the soul like that. The shock is mechanical. There are times when a person leaves, the soul leaves the body temporarily, and there are some experiences that happen at the time the soul leaves the body, and that time the medical instrument, if the person is in the hospital, the medical instruments will record that the person is dead. There is no pulse. Okay. The soul leaves with the subtle body, and the soul can have some communication with those on the other side. And if that person is supposed to move on, then that's the end of that. We're going to have to cremate or bury or whatever the religion or understanding is. But sometimes that soul is given a message, and then the subtle body is returned. The soul is back in that particular body, and it revives again. And believe me, there are so many examples. It's called a near-death experience. And those who are given that message while they live the body temporarily, some of them come and report exactly what was given to them. So this is a situation where an experienced doctor may look and say, oh, this particular person is gone, because they're looking at the instrument and the pulse is getting weaker and weaker and weaker. They can tell by just looking at, the oscilloscope giving whatever, the amplitude is going down, 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 down. The soul is getting ready to leave. The senses are shutting down. That's one thing a doctor can predict that. But doctors don't have much say over whether the soul returns or not. The shock that's given is a mechanical type. Sometimes some put it the other way. There are people who leave the body and they will give an electric shock and they don't come back. They don't come back to consciousness. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The medical profession know how to work the body to try to get the body to be better. But when the soul leaves the body, it's up to the transcendental system as to whether that soul will return after a short while to the body again, or whether they won't come back. The medical profession can take credit for shocking the body, but when it comes to revival, that's not really in their hands as they think it is. That's the point we're making. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's 6:36. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about, but
about the verse 217 you said.
Yes. Yeah. One part, Srila Prabhupada was saying the atomic soul is floating in 5 kinds of air, and it is called the prana, apana, dhyana, samana, and udana. And I wanted to give a short description of those because, that's all he said. And it's in Srimad Bhagavatam, the purport, he talks about it more of Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 9. He says, the main air passing through the nose, this is all air, but different parts of it, they call it, wherever it is, they call it a different name. It's the same, the air. So the main air passing through the nose and breathing, that's called prana. And then the air which passes through our body when we go to the bathroom and we evacuate bodily air, that's called apana. The air which adjusts the foodstuffs within the stomach, and sometimes it comes out when we belch, that's called samana. And then the air which passes through the throat, breathing, if somebody stops the breathing, we start suffocating, that's called udama. And then the total air which circulates through the entire body is called dhyana. So he gave these 5, and I thought that I'll just do some research and find out the meanings of all of them so I can share it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. This was a very nice discussion. I just wanted to post a video. It's actually it's not even 3 minutes, and devotees can watch it. Devotee asked Prabhupada, what happens when the when there's a heart transplant, what happens to the soul? And he said, and this is the video, it's literally a 30-second video that devotees can watch. And it's actually, and the answer was given by Srila Prabhupada himself, where he said that just like as a person is sitting from one chair and they change the other chair, the person is not changing. The soul, when the heart gets transplanted, the soul goes from the old heart to the new heart, because the soul is not in the heart. It's in the region of the heart, Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
So just like, yeah, I think
the soul is not attached. It's not attached.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not attached to the heart.
It's not material, so it's only hovering in that area.
Exactly.
So when a new heart gets taken, it still can stay there or come back.
Exactly. So that's what Srila Prabhupada says. So it's literally a 30-second video. I just found it. The answer is from Srila Prabhupada's, it's actually Prabhupada's answer that was pulled from a conversation he had with Bali Mardan Prabhu and Karandana Prabhu, and they put it in the video so devotees can watch. But it's a very nice discussion. Very, very nice discussion. Thank you all for joining us. If there's no other questions, I know we passed the 6:30 mark. If there's no questions, if there's any points, thank you all for joining us. Vanchakaptubhyascha kripasindhabhevachcha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful weekend, devotees. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother Gita.